What is up, guys, and welcome back to another Grimlock video. Today we're going to be going over the official 10.2 PvP tier list. This is going to be for solo shuffle / arena only. I'll be doing a separate tier list video for RBGs / like I guess the Battleground Blitz thing, but realistically it's going to be RBGs. But it's just too much to put all in one video, so we're just going to be doing solo shuffle and arena. This is the tier list for that, 10.2. Let's get right into it. Alrighty, guys, so this is the 10.2 Arena and Solo Shuffle PvP tier list, at least my version of it. We have S tier, A+ tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, and we have the Dumpster tier. Now, starting things off, because this is just for arenas and solo shuffle, I'm just going to slap all the tanks in the Dumpster tier, except for maybe one of them. Maybe Brewmaster is pretty good, or Blood DK is somewhat good too, but realistically they're all dumpster in my eyes. I can't stand them, but they're there. So either way, we're going to start off with the tank straight in the dumpster. And then we're moving on. We got Arms Warrior. So Arms Warrior is doing particularly well this season. It got a lot of, well, not a lot, but it's a good amount of buffs coming into 10.2, and it seems like it's doing really well with its scaling. So I've seen people hit almost 400k mortal strikes, which is pretty crazy, pretty disgusting right now, as most people have anywhere from like 900k to a million health right now in PvP with the gear that they currently have, which is full honor gear, and then probably about 5 to 6 pieces of conquest gear or so, because we got the weekly vault, and then we got what's it called, like 2 war mode pieces, stuff like that. So either way, yeah, Arms Warrior is doing pretty well. I'm going to put Arms Warrior in the A+ tier. I do think it's pretty good. It's pretty solid with a lot of things in the meta right now, specifically Havoc Demon Hunters I think are really good with it. Also, I low-key don't see this a lot, but I do like the idea of Arms Warrior Boomkin. I think that comp is crazy solid right now. Also, low-key Frost DK Arms Warrior is really good, but we're going to keep that on the side because we don't want Frost DK to ever get nerfed, because Frost DK is in an absolute trash place and it needs to be reworked immediately. Either way, moving on to Fury Warrior. I think Fury Warriors are okay. Definitely not on the same level of Arms Warrior. Probably going to put them in B tier, if I'm going to be honest with myself. I know the last tier list, I placed a lot of things in like A tier, S tier range, and then there was like God tier range, and a lot of people were mad about that, the fact that it wasn't spread across too much. Also, guys, if you do enjoy this type of content, please make sure to subscribe and comment down below. I love to hear from you guys. But yeah, so Fury Warrior, B tier. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think the reason why Fury Warrior is B tier compared to Arms Warrior is the utility it has just isn't as equivalent as Arms Warrior. I also think that it can die a lot easier than Arms Warrior, which is kind of funny. I do think Die by the Sword is just so good of a defensive that it just kind of levels up Arms Warrior a little bit. But yeah, moving on to Assassination Rogue. Now, Rogues got a massive rework this tier, 10.2, so this patch rather. Sin Rogues are crazy. I would say Sin Rogues are S tier. I think Sin Rogue's probably one of the higher damaging rogue specs, though all of them are really good. I will say Sub Rogue is significantly harder to play than the other two. So just because of that, I'm still placing it in S tier, but it's definitely like lower S tier compared to, it might even be A+ tier just because of the difficulty of Sub Rogue comparatively to Sin Rogue and Outlaw Rogue. I will say Outlaw Rogue is pretty good. It does a lot of damage and just seems to parse really hard. I think the fact that it's basically, in my opinion, I think Outlaw Rogue kind of plays like a better version of Warrior right now, which is crazy because Arms Warrior is really good. So if you have that being really good, Outlaw Rogue plays really, really well. So like I was saying before, where Arms Warrior and Boomkin can match really well together, I think Outlaw Rogue Boomkin can match even better together, which is why you'll probably see Boomkins play with an Outlaw Rogue, or you'll see them play with a Havoc Demon Hunter, because those are just better specs to play with. Marksmanship Hunter, I actually haven't seen a lot of Marksmanship Hunter, and I think that's because they haven't really unlocked their tier yet, but I do know once they get their tier, Marksmanship Hunter absolutely pumps. I think it's low key A plus tier. It's very solid. It does a lot of damage to Clothies, and there's a lot of Clothies in the game right now because Frost Mage just got buffed on the recent patch. Fire Mage is doing pretty good. Arcane Mage is also okay, but it's definitely fallen from where it was last season. And the Warlock specs are really good. So anything that's a Clothy that's playing right now is really good. The only thing is Shadow Priests are on the decline. So not seeing as many Shadow Priests isn't as good for Marksmanship Hunter stonks. You know what I'm saying? The more Clothies that are good, the better Marksmanship Hunter becomes because it does pure physical damage outside of Arcane Shot, which actually does a lot of damage. Arcane Shot can hit for like 150k, but either way, that's where we're at. We're Marksmanship. I think it's there. I will say Survival Hunter is it's good. I think it's really good, but it's low key good. It's always low key good. I feel like it's the hardest Hunter spec to play, and I think that's why it's low key good. But you can hit really hard. I think you can hit kill shots for over 300k right now. An explosive shot probably over 200k right now with the right gearing. So I'm actually going to put Survival in A tier. I don't think it's as good as Marks, but I might be wrong on that. It does depend on the composition you're playing. So I think if you're a really, really good Marksmanship Hunter, playing something like Marksmanship Hunter Sub Rogue, or Marksmanship Hunter Outlaw Rogue even, Thug Cleave, something like that, you might do really well. Or like a PhDK, so like a Marksmanship Hunter Unholy DK, pretty disgusting composition right there as well. There's other ones I'm missing. Oh, Jungle Cleave is also a really good one. But yeah, so Marksmanship Hunter has really good comps, and then Survival, because it has to play in the melee range a lot of the time, not all the time because of its burst, but a lot of the time it has to play in the melee range. It's a little more susceptible to dying, in my opinion. You can't kite as well as Marksmanship Hunter. You can't just line of sight. So yeah, that's where my Survival Hunter pick is going to go. Now Beast Mastery Hunter I will put in S tier. I think Beast Mastery is crazy good, low key, pretty insane amount of damage it does. The amount of pets it summons too is chaotic. I think if you play Beast Mastery Hunter Demo Lock, like HLS or HLD, which is like Hunter Lock Druid, I don't think you'll have a single problem pushing. I think the amount of damage you do alone is enough to kill, let alone the fact that you have Trap and you have Fear and you have Cyclone. I think that would be disgusting. So I think that composition is crazy. Also, the amount of screen clutter that you cause, because there's a bunch of Warlock pets and a bunch of Beast Mastery Hunter pets, that alone is really disorienting to new players and old players alike. So yeah, I think Beast Mastery and Demo Lock could work really well together, but don't play that because I'll cry if I ever fight into that. But I will say Beast Mastery Hunter Arms Warrior KFC is really good. Beast Mastery Hunter Ret is really good because of Cupid Cleave. I think that's a wonderful comp. Unholy DK Beast Mastery Hunter. Beast Mastery Hunter plays with a lot of stuff, and it's also very solid. Does a lot of damage. Its pets are super tanky. So good. So yeah, Beast Mastery Hunter is really good, especially if you have good pet management. I think it's insane. Havoc Demon Hunter. Now, I think Havoc, it got a pretty significant nerf to some of its damage, like 20% nerfs to some of its damage, but it still hits for like 300k with every ability it does. It's actually unreal. I think Havoc Demon Hunter is insanely busted. I don't know what they were thinking. I kind of predicted this coming into this patch, that Havoc Demon Hunter was going to be insane, because everything they touch with a rework, they happen to be crazy on. So like this definitely feels right now like the Havoc Demon Hunter at the start of the season felt like the Ret Warrior, the Ret Paladin rework when that happened, and now it still feels pretty equivalent to Ret. I would say that Havoc Demon Hunter feels pretty equivalent to the Ret rework, which is pretty insane because people were saying that Ret is out of this world, and it was out of this world, and it's still pretty good. But yeah, Havoc Demon Hunter definitely belongs in S tier, even after the nerfs. It's disgusting. It plays with so many things. It's crazy. It's basically just like a more mobile warrior, does so much damage that it's unhealable. You can literally kill an entire team with Fel Barrage even after the nerf. Like 20% wasn't enough. In one Fel Barrage, you were doing like 1.2 million in like 8 seconds. It's unreal, dude. You were doing like 100k DPS with one button press, on top of the fact that you can do other buttons at the same time. So yeah, I think Havoc Demon Hunter needs a real heavy looking and a real heavy nerf. It's disgusting. Havoc Demon Hunter's crazy. Pharaoh Druids have fallen a little bit. I think Pharaoh Druids belong in like the high B, low A tier. I'll put them in low A right now because they do a lot of damage. I've gotten hit for 300k with Ferocious Bites, which is pretty nice. Not too shabby at all, and that was without an Augmentation Evoker. Now, I think Augmentation Evoker Feral is a great composition. Obviously, people don't want to play Augmentation Evoker. I think it's kind of scummy. I personally love Augmentation Evoker. I think it takes a lot of setup, which I kind of enjoy. I know a lot of people will argue it doesn't take a lot of setup, but it does. Trust me, it does. Because if you don't get it off right, if you don't set up your damage right as Augmentation Evoker, you're not going to hit nearly as hard as if you set it up right. So if you can set up damage as Augmentation Evoker, you can like almost kill somebody instantly. If you can't, you're not going to get there. But Feral Druids, yeah, they have dropped significantly. I think they're super squishy in this meta right now. Havoc Demon Hunters seem to absolutely rip them to shreds. The only saving grace for Feral Druids, in my opinion, is the fact that they play with a lot of the classes that are really good right now, like BM Hunter and stuff like that. So also Mage, like Feral Druid Mage is really good. But then again, if you're going to play Feral Druid Mage, you almost might as well play Rogue Mage. Similar playstyle, a little bit more PvE centric, but rogues are kind of PvE centric right now. I think Sin Rogue is basically just a way better version of Feral Druid right now. Put it that way. All right, Resto Druid. This is probably the best healer in the game, even after the nerfs. I would say Resto Druid is super good, even after the nerfs. I just played with one last night, and I had no problem pushing the 2.2, 2.1 MMR range in twos, and I was playing Warlock, which is a class I don't play a lot of, so I don't think Resto Druid is bad in any sense. I know on Twitter, Metaphors was going crazy after the nerf, saying that it was absolutely terrible and that they need to revert the nerf, but I still think Resto Druid is by far the best healer. Maybe that's just because he hasn't played another healer, but Resto Druid is disgusting compared to other healers, in my opinion. Let alone the fact that it has Cyclone. It has the ability to get that when you shift into cat form or any combat form, you get Heart of the Wild for 15 seconds every minute. That is really good as well because for some reason it counts Cyclone, I think, as like a boomy ability, so it casts way faster when you have Heart of the Wild active on a Resto Druid. So yeah, I don't know, man. Sorry. Yeah, I think Resto Druid is disgusting. Definitely high tier. Boomkin, I'm going to place an A+ tier. I don't think it's S tier broken, but it does do really good damage. Really good damage. It always has done really good damage, but now it's doing really good damage. And its best teammate, which is Havoc Demon Hunter, and also Rogue, happen to be like the best classes in the game right now. So you're loving life if you're Boomkin because you kind of get carried by the fact that your teammates are just super hyper buffed. I will say Boomkin itself is really good, but I don't think it's S tier. I definitely think it's A+ tier though. It does a significant amount of damage, has really good crowd control, has an instant cast 6-second silence that healers can't get out of unless if they pre-freedom it or if they're a gnome or if you fade it or something crazy. If you do something insane, you have to outplay the Boomkin completely basically. But either way, very good spec. Moving on to Frosty K. Sadly, Frosty K, I'm still going to place... Actually, I'll place it in B tier because C tier is not exactly where it belongs, in my opinion. I think the set bonus, being able to bounce the chill streak off of yourself, is a huge buff. I know a lot of people don't think of it that way, but it's crazy because now you can actually do pretty decent single target damage without having to press your Pillar of Frost, which is kind of nice. The only thing is you're only going to really want to press Chill Streak when you have Pillar of Frost active. I think something that would make Frosty K feel really good, if Blizzard is listening, would be if they had some form of cooldown reduction on their Chill Streak, like a talent that allows your Chill Streak to, and maybe instead of having that talent where it says like it bounces an extra 2 times and has a 10-yard range or something, or it has a chance to bounce extra times. And maybe instead of that, they replace it with like a CDR for Chill Streak on every Frost Strike or something like that, so you can't just like spam it. So like maybe every single Frost Strike, you reduce the cooldown of Chill Streak by 1 second. I think that would feel pretty good because then you'd get Chill Streak up probably every 30 seconds instead of 45 seconds, which feels way better in my opinion. So yeah, I think there's some things they could do to Frosty K to make it better, but the set bonus is definitely a good increase for Frosty K. I think it's awesome. I think that's nice, but either way, I still think it's not where it belongs. What I do think is crazy is Unholy DK. I think Unholy DK is very good. It's definitely better than Beast Mastery Hunter. I wouldn't say it's better than the Rogue specs. I do think it's S tier. It does stupidly high damage, and it just got buffed and buffed and buffed for some reason. Coming into 10.2, it got buffed, which made no sense. And then it got buffed again, which made absolutely no sense because it was good in 10.1.7. And then going into 10.2, they're just like, yeah, here's another 20% damage buff on Unholy Frenzy, which is crazy. Compared to getting 20% haste, now you get 20% flat damage. So basically you have Avatar as an Unholy DK, or Pillar of Frost basically as an Unholy DK, which makes no sense. 0 sense, actually. So, yeah, Unholy DK is disgusting. It does stupidly high damage. This is a surprising pick for me. I've been playing a bunch of Devastation Evoker because I play a lot of Evoker in general. In low key, I don't think people are placing Devastation Evoker as high as they should be. I think it's high A tier. I don't think it's A plus tier. I do think it's high A tier. Now, its survivability is a little lower. Well, a lot lower than Augmentation Evokers, but its sustained damage is so much higher that if you're playing with like a sustained damage class like an Affliction Warlock or even like a Demonology Warlock, you'll probably do a pretty good job of damage. I think Frost Mage Devastation Evoker is a great composition. I think Ret Paladin Devastation Evoker is disgusting. Crazy good composition. Low key. I also think the fact that it does such high sustained damage allows it to not have to play with an MS effect, which a lot of classes have to play with MS effects in order to be competitive. So like, you know, Boomkin wants to play with something with an MS effect like a Rogue or a Havoc Demon Hunter, whereas Devastation Evoker doesn't exactly have to because its single damage pressure is so high. I mean, I'm hitting Disintegrate ticks for like 120k each tick, and you do like 4 ticks in 2 seconds. So I do like 400k in 2 seconds, so it's like 200k DPS on just Disintegrating alone. It's pretty nasty, dude. It does a lot of damage, like really, really high damage, and it's super easy to kite from melee. I think the only danger when playing Devastation Evoker is playing into the caster cleaves, so anything like S play, like Shadow play, which is Shadow Priest, any Warlock spec, and then also like Mage Lock blank, so like Mage Lock Druid, Mage Lock Shaman, Mage Lock Priest. So anything like that is a really hard spot for Devastation Evoker to do anything. But outside of that, like any melee cleave in the game, I feel like I do pretty well versus. I will say Havoc Demon Hunter just shreds everything in sight, so Devastation Evoker is not excused from that. I think Devastation Evoker gets absolutely tranced on by Havoc Demon Hunter. The nice part about Devastation Evoker and Augmentation Evoker, actually all the Evoker specs, is you can spec into the fact that your hover makes you immune to slow effects, and that allows you to kite really easily away from Havoc Demon Hunter if you utilize your hovers properly. Also, Rescue is an amazing ability. So yeah, either way, I think Devastation Evoker belongs in the high A tier, maybe even low A plus tier if you play with the right composition. Now, there's a lot of things in this game that can burst you down really substantially fast, and I know Devastation Evokers are rather squishy compared to Augmentation Evokers, but realistically, if you look at their ability breakdown, they're actually not that much different. The biggest difference for Augmentation Evoker is that it has Blistering Scales, which is why I'm going to put it in A plus tier. I don't think it's S tier anymore. I do think it's probably better than Marksmanship Hunter, though. And I think Arms is better than Boomy. There you go. I'll put it like that. I think Augmentation is better than Boomy too. But yeah, I think Augmentation Evoker is really good. I don't think it's great though. It's not God tier anymore because it lost out on its set bonus, which was a 15% damage increase to its empowered spells in PvP, which is crazy good. And then also it lost out on some of its primary stat gain for its teammates. With Ebonmite, it got a good amount of substantial nerfs. I will say I still have hit for over 300k with its Upheaval and over 200k with its Fire Breath in basically like 0.2 seconds. So you like cast the Upheaval and then you tip the scales Fire Breath, and in those 0.2 seconds you can do 500k. So that is pretty good, but it's nowhere near what it used to be because if you think about it, people still have 900k to a million health, which is a substantial amount of health. I mean, we're talking, you know, I'm only doing 50% of their health, whereas I used to, with the set bonus and the previous like damage, I used to be able to do probably about 80% of someone's health if I set up my damage properly. So that's a pretty big nerf, but you're still doing 50% of someone's health in a single global, not even in less than a global. So you can catch somebody way off guard, and Augmentation Evoker Demon Hunter is a very good composition. It was good last season, so this season I can only imagine it's probably its best composition right now. Also, Unholy DK Augmentation Evoker is very fun to play. It's what I pushed with to get 2.6 last season. I wouldn't say pushed. I literally went from 2200 to 2600 in one session literally the last day of the season. But either way, yeah. So Augmentation Evoker is good. I think Devastation Evoker does have a place, though. Preservation Evoker, low-key probably the worst healer right now, outside of maybe Resto Shaman, I think. Yeah, I think. It does a lot of damage. I think it would play really, really well with Demon Hunter DK, but outside of Demon Hunter DK, I think any spell cleave you play into, you're going to struggle because you have to use a lot of your abilities early on, like a lot of your burst abilities. So you're hoping for quick games. You're hoping for like 2-minute, 3-minute games compared to anything that lasts above like 5 minutes. If you last above 5 minutes, if you have like you're fighting a tanky comp, Mage, Lock, Druid, or something like that, yeah, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle a lot. So I think I'm still going to place it in A tier, but it's definitely not the best healer in my opinion. Maybe Holy Paladin's worse. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't played against or with a lot of Holy Paladins. I've played against a couple Holy Paladins, and I don't seem to have any struggle at all versus them. But then again, I've been playing Affliction Warlock in 2v2, and Affliction Warlock just eventually wins in 2s. So I will say Holy Paladin is pretty good. It has a lot of utility. I don't think anything really got changed this season. Maybe it got a mana rework slightly. Like I think it got some mana gain back from the patch notes. I'm trying to think of the patch notes in my head. I forget. But either way, I don't think Holy Paladin's that great. I am going to place it, I'll place it high A tier. I'll actually place this like high A tier as well. And I think Devastation Evoker maybe should be under Survival and Feral, but it is really good. I low-key think Devastation's really good. Yeah, so I think this is where Holy Paladin and Preservation belong, is in the A tier. Ret Paladins, I do think Ret Paladins are A+ tier with Arms Warrior, like that range. Ret might be S tier level if it's playing with an Arms Warrior specifically. If it's playing with a Beast Mastery Hunter and you're playing Cupid, you could also be S tier. But if you're playing with pretty much any other class combination, I think you're going to be A+ tier on the Ret Paladin. And the reason I say that Ret Warrior is so strong is because Warriors just got Safeguard, which basically makes it so that you can hand a sack your teammate as the Arms Warrior, and the Ret Paladin can hand a sack you as the Arms Warrior. So you just almost like have 20% damage reduction when it matters most for both classes, on top of their already insane shield wall and damage reduction. So I think Arms Warrior Ret Paladin is an insanely tanky composition. So yeah, super tanky, does a ridiculous amount of burst pressure, has Mortal Strike effect, has super good utility with Hand of Sanctuary. It also has Hand of Protection, it has Bubble, it has Lay on Hands. A lot of utility. So Ret Paladin is an amazing class for utility. I definitely think A+ tier is where it belongs. Discipline Priest just got a substantial new ability. It got some really cool, it got a rework too, I think, technically, like a small rework. But yeah, I think Discipline Priest is really good. I noticed that I didn't really struggle versus them because a lot of them were ooming, but I think if you're a good Discipline Priest, it's really hard to oom you. I don't know. Some Discipline Priests, it seems like, okay, they oom in like 2.5 minutes, 3-minute mark. And then other Discipline Priests I fight against, it's like, I can't get them to oom. So I have no clue what the problem is there. I don't know what the skill difference is in the player. But yeah, Discipline Priest, pretty solid. I'm going to say Discipline Priest is A+ tier. I'll put it under Augmentation, but yeah, I think it's A+ tier. It's really good. It doesn't have free dispels anymore with Fade. You can't Fade dispel anymore, so that's a big nerf to them. But they did get Ultimate Penitence, and Ultimate Penitence absolutely parses. You can do like 500k over the course of like 3 seconds, which is kind of nice. If you think about it, you're doing over 100k DPS there. You could do that much damage, which is pretty nice. You can also do a lot of healing with it as well, which is really good. And while you are in Ultimate Penitence, you are immune to crowd control. You are not immune to getting debuffs put on you, though, I noticed. So I can put on like Curse of Tongue still, and like other debuffs like, my Unstable Affliction, etc. I can put on dots. I can swap dots to them still while it's not like a bubble, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But it is really good. I will say the more people start to play around Ultimate Penitence, the worse it will become. But there'll be compositions like Rogue Mage Priest where you won't be able to play around it because they're just going to set up for it, and then they'll set up for it, and the Disc Priest on top of the Rogue and the Mage's damage is going to absolutely parse anything in sight. You'll delete something 100-0. For sure. So I think Rogue Mage Priest, super good composition. Disc Priest has to be doing pretty good, I would imagine, in solo shuffle because it can do a significant amount of damage while also reducing the amount of damage people take. So classes like Devastation Evoker, for instance, that normally struggles with staying alive, you're able to provide them with extra damage reduction, which will keep them alive for much longer. So I think Devastation Evoker's best healer is either Resto Druid or Discipline Priest. Just to put that out there. But yeah, Discipline Priest is pretty good. Holy Priest is also pretty good. It's hard to say if it's better than Discipline or not. Holy Priest does have the 3 instant cast Holy Fires, which is a significant amount of damage. It does have a really good defensive in Guardian Spirit. It can go into Spirit Form, which is basically a bubble that can't be dispelled. But you're stationary, which is kind of sucky. But it is free mana. So the fact that you don't as fast as a Holy Priest, which is really nice. But your sustained healing is also okay, I would say. So I think Holy Priest is good. I like Chastise too, the fact that it has Chastise. I will say this, I think Rogue Mage Priest plays better as Discipline, and I think like Jungle Cleave plays better with Holy. And I think like most Hunter comps play better with Holy because the Holy Priest itself can set up for the traps with its own stun with Chastise, which is nice, so the Hunter doesn't have to utilize Intimidation Stun on a healer in order to get a trap. You can Intimidation Stun trap, and then the next trap you can use Holy Word Chastise, trap into a fear, etc. So Holy Priest having a range stun over Disc Priest is a big benefit. So it depends on what comp you're playing, but I'm going to put them in the same tier. I'll put Holy Priest a little bit above Discipline just because I think it ooms less fast. But yeah, I think it's pretty similar. I think they're pretty good. I will say Shadow Priest has fallen quite a bit. It was like a low-key high A plus tier, low S tier last season, but after a lot of the changes and losing some of their special little nicks and crannies like their set bonus and stuff like that, the set bonus they currently have is a little finicky. It's like every single time you death, you gain a stack of something, and then once you gain enough stacks, your next Shadow Word Pain plus Catharsis, you could do like 400k in a single global, which is nice, but it takes a long time to set up. So, with that being said, I think Shadow Priest is it's good with the right composition. I think it'll play really well with Mage right now. Like God Comp is probably really good. I think Frost Mage, Resto Druid, Shadow Priest is a great composition, and not enough people are playing it. I do think that you could probably get some decent success out of RPS right now, which is Rogue Priest. I think Assassination Rogue Shadow Priest would probably do really well. Now, the problem with Shadow Priest, like I said, is it requires a lot of setup. And it is pretty tanky still, so like you still have Disperse, you still have, Desperate Prayer, and you still have Life Swap as well as Fade. So it's definitely still pretty good, but I don't think it's where it belonged before. I do still think it's A tier. I don't think it's A plus tier anymore, especially with the rise of Havoc Demon Hunters being absolute mongoloids. It makes it really hard to survive as a Shadow Priest. You really have to time your phase shifts well. So, for instance, if you're fighting against a Havoc Demon Hunter, something you want to watch out for is one Kyrian Sigil on the ground. You can phase shift that super easily. You see the blue symbol, press phase shift, you avoid the damage completely. That's really nice. 2 is when they start to doing the Blade Dance or the Death Sweep, depending if they're Metamorphosis or not. When they start doing that, right before it ends, you're going to want to press Fade, and that will avoid the big chunk of damage, which normally does like anywhere from 200k to 300k damage if they're setting it up right. So that will be how you avoid those special big bursts of damage. So just a little survivability tip if you are playing Shadow Priest out there. Make sure you time your Fade properly if you're playing phase shifts still, which you should be, in my opinion. I think phase shifts is insane. So yeah, Shadow Priest, A tier, could be really good, could be okay. Not sure how it'll feel with 4 set yet. Windwalker Monk is a low-key really good. I don't know why people aren't playing this as much, but it hits really hard, and you get the Blackout Souls now, which is from your set bonus. So every free spinning crane kick you do, your next blackout kick will hit 200% harder, which is 100% harder in PvP. So in PvP, before you were able to set up damage and still do like, I could probably do like, I would say solid 160k with a single blackout kick because it hits so many times. So if you set up your blackout kicks, you can probably like hit for like around 400k with gear right now, which is pretty crazy considering your Rising Sun kick also hits for like 200k and your Fist of Fury still hits for like 300k. 300k total. So you can Fist of Fury into a Rising Sun kick into a Blackout kick and probably do, I'm not even joking, in just those 3 globals, close to 7 or 800k. And the nice part about Blackout kick and Fist of Fury is their AoE. Blackout kick AoEing is disgusting. You're going to cleave teams down really hard. So low key think that Windwalker Monk is low A plus tier. I do think it's better than A tier, better than everything in A tier for sure. Yeah, I think it's better than Marksmanship Hunter too. And it plays really well, in my opinion, with Demon Hunter. It also plays really well with Arms Warrior. It plays really well with Unholy DK. It plays really well with Boomkin. And it also plays really well with all of the Warlock specs besides Demo Lock. It's like a little iffy on Demo Lock. But yeah, so I think Windwalker Monk is pretty crazy. Also, Windwalker Monk Augmentation Evoker is a great composition, but nobody plays it, so I don't know why. But yeah, Windwalker Monk, really good. Mistweaver. Mistweaver's really good. I wish I had 2 separate icons, one for Fistweaver, one for Mistweaver, but we're stuck with the Mistweaver icon. So, because it has the ability to be a Fistweaver. Now, one, I do want to point out, if you're playing Mistweaver, I think it is beneficial to learn how to fistweave, even if you plan on mistweaving mainly. That way, for specific compositions like melee cleaves, you can fistweave, and it's going to be impossible for them to kill you for a long period of time. Because if you are in melee combat as a fistweaver, most of the time you're going to be able to top off your team constantly, which is really good. So I think fistweavers versus melee cleaves, caster weaver versus caster cleaves, and if you can swap between the two, you will be a very high tier healer. But yeah, I think Mistweaver belongs in A+ tier. I do think it's probably around there. I don't think it's as good as Priest. I do think it does a lot of sustain healing, especially Mistweaver. It does a ridiculous amount of sustain healing. I will say Fistweaver's caveat is if anything is good at kiting you, you can't heal, and that will significantly nerf you in terms of how much healing your output is. So if you're playing against like a control composition, for instance, as a Fistweaver, like Rogue Mage Priest, you are going to struggle a lot because they're going to lock you down and just burst you down, force all your cooldowns, and then the next go they'll just kill you in a stun. That happens a lot, so that is something you want to watch out for as a Fistweaver. But yeah, Fistweaver is really good. Caster Weaver is also really good. It does a lot of sustain healing, but it is a lot harder to play in my opinion. So I think Fistweaver, really good, really easy. Caster Weaver, really good, kind of hard. It depends on the comp you're playing against though. Moving on to Warlock here, Destro Lock, pretty good. Destro Lock's set bonus is really cool. It doesn't proc as often as I thought it would, but it makes it so that your Immolate can proc Dimensional Rifts, which Dimensional Rifts are instant cast rifts that cause a lot of damage, and you have 3 charges of it, so you just spread your Immolate to everything in sight, and then you get random procs of Dimensional Rift. I do think they might buff the amount of times it procs, because it only procs like once every minute, which is pretty low. Even if you have Immolate on like 3 targets, it's really low. So I don't know. At least for me, I haven't played it that much in real arena, but I definitely think it's good. I think even without the set bonus, Destro is pretty good. And with the right composition, it's really nasty. So like Destro Lock Windwalker Monk is really nasty. Destro Lock Rogue is really nasty. Destro Lock Warrior is really nasty. Destro Lock Mage is really nasty. So there's a lot of compositions you can play. I think Destro Lock definitely belongs in the A+ tier. Probably right under Ret. Definitely pretty good. It does a lot of damage, has a lot of control with Havoc, being able to Mortal Coil your Havocs into, Shadow Fury or Shadow Fury, set up the Bonds of Fel, Mortal Coil Havoc. You do a lot of damage there, like a crazy amount of damage there, actually. So yeah, Destro's a lot of fun to play, and you feel like you're doing a lot on your own, which is kind of nice, being able to set up for yourself. I love that. So yeah, Destro Lock's really good. Affliction Lock, I've been playing a lot of Affliction Lock lately, and I think it's really good. I know a lot of people are placing this as the lowest tier Warlock spec, but I actually kind of think it's like almost better than Destro in my opinion. It plays really good. I know the meta right now is super high burst, but being able to like constantly do a lot of damage over time and just slowly rot people down while your teammate's doing a lot of burst damage is really good. And you also don't have to cast a lot as Affliction, especially now with Jinx. not that you had to cast your spells before, but you don't have a lot of globals to press. Now you can just press like Curse of Exhaustion on one target. You can press Curse of Tongues on the other target, and now you have full dots rolling except for Unstable Afflictions, which is the only thing you really have to cast. And once you have Unstable Afflictions out, you can Soul Rot, and you just have so many dots and so many buttons to press, which is so awesome. So I love that. So I think Affliction is really good, does a lot of damage. I probably sustain around like 70k to 80k DPS in 2v2s, and in 3s I sustain around like 100k, like 90 to 100k DPS, which is pretty disgusting, dude. If you're just doing a flat 100k DPS the whole game, eventually you're going to cause a healer to run out of mana rather quickly. A low-key comp I think is really good right now is Unholy DK Affliction Lock, which is Shadow Cleave. I think that composition is running under the radar a little bit, which I like. But yeah, I think Affliction Lock is very good. Demo Lock, I will say, is significantly better than all the other Warlock specs. It's S tier, in my opinion. Its set bonus is really good. Doomfiend does about a total combined with Doombrand, probably about 11 to 12% of your damage. So your tier alone does about 12% of your damage. But the rest of your abilities no longer revolve around Demonic Tyrant, which Demonic Tyrant is still very good, but everything else hits really hard, which is scary because when you don't have to worry about having to set up your damage anymore as Demo Lock, you're going to just start farming, which is kind of the case right now. So I like it a lot. I think Demo Lock is really good. Doomfiend definitely scary, Tyrant definitely scary, just a Warlock pet in general is really scary. I have played against a lot of Demon Locks as Affliction Lock. I don't think I've lost like 2 games to Demon Locks out of maybe like 6 I've played versus Demon Locks, but I do think I was outplaying the Demon Locks substantially. I do think Demon Locks should win that, because as much as I can camp a pillar and just keep applying dots instantly, they can just like camp a pillar and keep their pets up forever, and their pets do a lot of damage. Their pets, if you think about it in the sense that their pets are each a dot, they have a lot of dots. If you think about it, they have a lot of pets. So yeah, Demon Lock's really good, does a lot of damage, has a lot of control, and is super, super tanky. It got a lot of damage reduction in this last patch. So it's taking like 20% less damage to everything on top of everything else it does, which is pretty good. So yeah, Demon Lock's really good. Moving on to Frostmage. Frostmage just got a buff this week that is pretty insane. It got an 80% buff to Frost Bomb, which Frost Bomb was hitting pretty hard before. I think it was hitting for over 100k, probably like 150k before. 80% to that, you're looking at almost 300k, because it's almost double. So yeah, I think Frost Bomb's pretty disgusting. You could probably hit for over almost 300k with it now. You probably can hit for over 300k with it with gear, on top of Glacial, on top of Ray of Frost. So it has a lot of like one-shot buttons, which is really great. I think a really low-key comp is actually like either Fury Warrior or Arms Warrior Frost Mage. Super good composition. It was a good composition back in Warlords of Draenor even. So it's an old composition, but I think Frost Mage can play with a lot. I think Frost Mage Demo Lock is really good, but let's see. I think I would place Frost Mage after the buffs, probably right under Destro. I'm gonna put Marks in the A tier. I don't think it belongs in A+ tier. I think it's an A tier spec. Yeah, I think so. I think this is where I want them to be. Yeah, so I think Frost definitely belongs under Destro, maybe above Destro. It's pretty good. I don't think it's better than Affliction though, in my opinion. I think Affliction is really good. I feel like the fact that you can just endlessly rot people without having to be in line of sight of them 90% of the game alone is really good, because you're making yourself like an unkillable target for a lot of the game. And even when they go you, you're really tanky, because you have Dark Pact, and then you also have your Soul Rot into Drain Life, which is really tanky. So yeah, I think Affliction Lock belongs where it is. I think Frost Mage belongs where it is. Arcane Mage, I do think has fallen quite a bit. I do think it does a decent amount of damage, but I don't think it is anywhere where it used to be in form of damage. I think you can probably place it... I think I'm going to rearrange this a little bit. So I'm going to place Arcane in A. I'm going to drop the Fury down to C. I'll just do that. I'm going to place Arcane in A because it's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty good, but it doesn't do nearly as much damage as it was doing because of the way the stats work. Now, I think towards the end of the season, once everybody's full gear, Arcane Mage will see the light of day again. But right now, in this little awkward shift in the current meta where it's like, you know, some people have honor gear, some people have little bits and pieces of conquest, some people have the upgraded war mode gear, stuff like that. You're not going to see every class's pure potential just yet. So I think Arcane Mage belongs in high A tier. I do think Fire Mage is pretty good. It just got like a little buff, kind of. It's like a buff nerf. They're trying to take it so that you don't have to play Glass Cannon all the time. But in doing so, they also like nerfed the health drop of Glass Cannon down to 15% from 20%, which is pretty big. That means you just get 5% of your health back if you're playing Glass Cannon all the time. So I will say I think Fire Mage is probably like, I would say it's probably above Mistweaver, maybe above Windwalker even. It's definitely not above Boomy. I think Boomy belongs up here. But yeah, I think Fire Mage. Frost is probably the best mage spec in my opinion right now, which is funny because it casts more than all the other ones. Fire might, actually, you know what, I might place Frost down here now that I think about it because it casts a lot. Fire does just have pure instant casts like a lot of the time, and that alone with what compositions you play, like Rogue Mage for instance, Fire Mage, Rogue Mage is probably disgusting right now. Yeah, I think so. I think this is where it belongs. I will say if you're playing with a Demo Locus Frost Mage, you could probably put yourself in high A tier, like above Arms Warrior even. But outside of that composition, I think you're going to lower yourself down to where you are. So I think your best composition as Frost Mage is playing with a Demo Lock. I think Fire Mage has a lot more compositions it can play with. I will say Frost Mage Boomkin is also really good, which is called Frozen Chicken Cleave. I think any of the mage specs with Boomkin is really good. But yeah, so that's where I'm going to place it for right now. Moving on to Shaman, our last class. This is a long video. Sorry, guys. It's 40 minutes. But hey, we're getting there. We're getting there. This is dialed in. You know what I'm saying? Resto Shaman. I think Resto Shamans are okay. I played against one. The only thing is I think they like kind of fast. I was playing against one in twos, and he was really good Shaman player, dispelling my dots. Earthen shielding, all that stuff, like crazy good player, shearing me like off cooldown. I was trying to avoid that too, which is crazy. So yeah, I was playing against a really good Restoration Shaman, definitely multi-glad level, and he after like 4 minutes of playing, which is crazy because I feel like a good Restoration Shaman should be able to last a long time. I don't know why, but I feel like Restoration Shaman's mana pool is really low, and that's the only problem with them. I am going to place them high A tier, but definitely not A plus tier. I can't get it in front of the Arcane. There you go. Yeah, I think high A tier is where it belongs. Probably the only problem with Resto Shaman, in my opinion, is the fact that if you have in threes, it's a lot easier to kill your totems because like you'll have 2 DPS chunking down totems at a time. And if you have people totem slaying the entire game, you are going to struggle super heavily as a Restoration Shaman. Now, if you're a good Restoration Shaman, you're going to use Totemic Projection, and you're going to try to place the totems, and then you're going to Totemic Project it behind a pillar, hopefully out of line of sight of any of their DPS, and that will keep your totems alive for a lot longer. The only problem is obviously if you have Earthen Shield Totem, or Earthen Wall Totem, I think it's called, you're going to want to keep that on top of your team. So you have to kind of like Totemic Project your totems out and then Earthen Wall on top of your team. That way your Earthen Wall stays. Because if you Earthen Wall first and then put out, say, Healing Stream and Healing Tide, and then you Totemic Project, you're getting no value out of your Earthen Wall Totem now. So you know what I'm saying? So I think you have to play really smart as a Restoration Shaman, but it is doable. I will say they are susceptible to dying really easily if you are wasteful with your cooldowns. So you have to utilize your cooldowns well, but they are really good in the casters because you have Grounding Totem and you have a Wind Shear, which is great. Also, they're okay in the melee cleaves. I think they're really bad in the Death Knights specifically because Shamans play a lot on positioning, and Death Knights being able to grip you out of your positioning as a Shaman is a very bad thing. So yeah, I think Restoration Shaman's not bad. I definitely don't think it's the best healer in the game, which definitely is Resto Druid in my opinion, hands down. Just does so much healing passively. It's crazy. Enhancement Shaman, I haven't seen a lot of Enhancement Shaman. I've been watching Saul play a little bit. Saul is a crazy good Enhancement Shaman, probably the best Enhancement Shaman in North America in my opinion. Saul is really good. I would put Enhance probably like a little bit above Windwalker. Low A plus tier. Pretty disgusting class. It does a lot of damage. I think a lot of people are running a Lava Lash build right now that can hit for like 300k or 200k with the Lava Lash, which is pretty crazy. And also they run Elemental Blast, which also hits for like 150k non-crit, so you can hit for like 300k and like 2 globals non-crit. And if you crit, they like kind of die. It's pretty crazy. So you can hit really hard as enhancement, and that's without 4-piece, which I'm not sure what the 4-piece is for enhancement, but I'm pretty sure it's a good damage buff. I will say I do think Elemental Shaman is really low key right now. For some reason, like no one's playing it, but it is just significantly better than even last season. And last season it was good. So I think Elemental is like probably like here, like high key. It's really good. And once it hits its 4-piece, its 4-piece is disgusting. So basically, when you Primordial Wave, if you have 2-piece, you send out an Elemental Blast. Your Elemental Blast can now stack in terms of buff, and they also gain extra duration. So you can actually end up with multiple Elemental Blast buffs at once, which is pretty disgusting. Nice. And also, so every time you Primordial Wave, you send out an Elemental Blast at 50% effectiveness in PvP. Which is pretty good. Hits basically as hard as an Earth Shock. So now your Primordial Wave you're going to want to use on your main target. So you Flame Shock off targets, Primordial Wave your main target. So send out the Elemental Blast. And then your 4-piece, which we'll get in like a week or 2, depending on how many things you've done this week or how lucky you got with your vault. Your 4-piece makes it so that every Lava Burst, the next 3 Lava Bursts after your Primordial Wave now hit every target with Flame Shock. So just like when you Primordial Wave normally, you cleave everything with your next Lava Burst, it's going to do that the next 3 Lava Bursts, which is disgusting because now you're resetting Primordial Wave way faster. Way faster. Because basically, you were relying on the fact that like you were hoping you were going to get an Ascendance proc. Now you have 3 chances to get an Ascendance proc on your Primordial Waves, every Primordial Wave. And if you do get an Ascendance proc, you can send out another round of Lava Burst to everything with your Flame Shocks. And on top of that, every single Lava Burst that comes out, you are resetting the cooldown of your Primordial Wave, which will allow you to stack up even more Elemental Blast buffs. And it's just an endless cycle of disgusting amounts of damage. Even if Lava Bursts were hitting for like 60k, you're sending out so many Lava Bursts at once that you're doing like 100k DPS. I swear on my life, guys, Elemental Shaman 4-piece might even bring it to S tier. It is really good. I do think its best composition in the game right now is probably Demo Lock, Elemental Shaman, Restoration Druid. But there is multiple compositions you can play. You can play Boomy Elemental. You can play a lot of things with an Elemental. But I do think Elemental is crazy good, especially once it gets its 4-piece. Now that will require some testing. We'll see. Because nobody has 4-piece right now. But I do think on the PTR, people are saying it's pretty good. And I think it's pretty good. And I love playing Elemental Shaman. So you might see some Elemental Shaman content come back, because I wasn't the biggest fan of last season's Elemental Shaman. It felt a little too scripted for me, but this one seems a little bit more entertaining. I can actually Primordial Wave my kill target instead of using it like another Flame Shock, which I love. So yeah, this is my tier list. I hope you guys enjoy it. Yeah, this is basically it. By the way, this is just for arenas and solo shuffle. I will be making a separate one for RBGs because it's just way too much information to put into one video. But guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this type of video, please make sure to drop a like and sub. Also, feel free to comment down below if you enjoyed this video, if you agree, if you disagree. I like talking with you guys about this kind of stuff. I do reply to comments most of the time within the first 24 hours. Also, make sure to catch my stream, which is right there. Boop, boop, boop. Catch my stream sometime. I stream Tuesday, Thursday, sometimes Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. It depends, but I definitely stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you'll catch me around 6:30, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern, all the way to about 11 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, check me out there. I stream a lot. I enjoy it. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and enjoy the patch 10.2. We'll see what happens, guys. This is going to develop even more. I might even come out with another tier list video once 4 set comes out. Who knows? But either way, I'll see you guys soon. Peace.